Coming up next on the Wet Fly Swing podcast.
They're kind of big, scaly, ventral mouths that are bottom feeders like a carp. You know, big scales on the side, but they're a native species, and they're really interesting. You know, they're these big, gentle giants, and I think they've been studied up to like 65 years old or something. They're just these ancient fish swimming around, and they'll really humble you because they're mostly in a sense kind of a filter feeder.
That was Seth Fields describing a fish species you may not have heard about yet. Buffalo muskie and Seth's angling report today on The Swing.
Welcome to the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show, where you discover tips, tricks, and tools from the leading names in fly fishing today.
Hey, how's it going today? Thanks for stopping by the show. Did you know a big part of us growing this show and reaching new people and helping more people up their fly fishing game, a lot of that has been built on sharing the episode one listener at a time. If you haven't shared the episode before, or if it's been a while, this is your chance to share it out and help grow this show and help a few more fly anglers. Today's episode is sponsored by FishHound Expeditions, putting together remote Alaskan wilderness trips for that trip of a lifetime. I just got off one of these trips, and it was definitely a trip of a lifetime for me. Northern Lights, river time, gravel bars, salmon, trout. It's all there, and the experience with Adam and the crew was amazing. You can head over to wetflyswing.com/fishhound right now to connect with Adam and find out more about this trip. That's FishHound, FishHound. We are also sponsored by Fairflies, creating ethically sourced premium fly tie materials. With their 5D brushes, you simply tie better flies faster. The 5D brushes contain perfectly proportioned materials to tie great streamers, bass flies, saltwater flies. We've had a number of guests on recently and coming up here that have talked about Fairflies and how much of a game changer this has been, both for durability and speed. You can head over to wetflyswing.com/fairflies right now. That's FAIRFLIES. You support Fairflies and this podcast by clicking through that link. Seth Fields is here to walk us through the diversity of Tennessee fly fishing. We hear about the Tennessee Tarpon, this big spay kickoff event they have, muskie, gar, smallmouth, and many more. We're digging into it today. All of this, Seth's stories, writing articles for some of the most well-known magazines around. So today, here we go. Seth Fields from thehatchoutfitters.com. How's it going, Seth?
Hey, Dave. I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for making a little time to put this together. It's earlier morning for me than you. You're over in Tennessee doing some good stuff over there. So we're gonna dig into your fly shop and a few of the species you're fishing for, probably including garp, probably today. But before we jump into all that, take us back to fly fishing. How did it all start for you, real quick?
Pretty much, my story is as basic as it comes. Much like a lot of people who are around in the early 90s, I'm a product of A River Runs Through It. Yeah, that movie came out, and I don't even distinctly remember knowing much about the movie, but you know, the visual, right? The visual of someone casting a fly line. I was just enamored with it. I was probably around the age of 6 or 7, and saw that film and was just all in at that point. And it's kind of funny. I actually have my mom is since getting into the industry for a while now. When I first got in, she like framed up this Christmas letter to Santa Claus that I wrote that year. So I have it here in like a little scrapbook. The wish list.
Oh, cool.
I was such a geeky kid. I'd like itemized the wish list, like this Shakespeare fly rod from Walmart. I had the price. I had a second option, a fly line, a box of flies, and just had this really detailed Christmas list. It was, for Santa Claus. Wow. that she framed up for me. So it's kind of funny, but that's where that's where it essentially started, was that kind of early obsession.
Yep. River runs through it. I know that we've heard that so many times on here. It's just, yeah, it's amazing all these years. I guess it's a tribute to, obviously Robert Redford and the, and what he put together, because that was a while ago and there hasn't been anything, I don't think anything close, right, over the years. I wonder, what do you think? Do you think there's a potential there's going to be something else like that in the future?
Everyone talks about those days kind of, depending on your perspective. Fly shops seem to talk about it as if it was a gift and a curse. And, so many people got into it, but it was a kind of bunch of fair weather fly fishers and not a lot stuck around. And then, for us, the recent boom with COVID, nobody really saw that coming in the fly fishing world, but, people tend to talk of them in the same category of just like times when people just really turn to fishing, and fly fishing, was just, those have been the two heydays, right? Like these two events, but one of them was more social and one was just this crazy thing that we're still kind of coming out of the cobwebs on. But
the aftermath.
It's interesting. But no, that film's great, and I still a huge fan. It's kind of comfort food for me. Like, my wife knows, like, if I'm sick or flu or kids bring home some bad bug, she's probably going to come home and find me watching it, or the movie menu sitting there on the TV with me passed out. It's just still one of my favorites.
Yeah, me too. It's just it's a cool story because it's really, it's a story not about, obviously not about fly fishing. That's the funny thing. The author, right? We've done some episodes on it, and it's, and it's a movie about the whole story.
Brotherhood.
His brotherhood. Exactly. Family. And
I have one brother, and there's some similarities there, and I might have been the more Paul-esque brother in our arrangement. My older brother was, sometimes trying to keep me straight, and we fought and did things brothers do. So anyone with that background's, there's more to the film than fishing, for sure.
It was your brother. Did he get into fly fishing too?
No. He's an avid outdoorsman, for sure. Just never, that was kind of that was an interesting part about the time, when I got my first fly rod and got introduced to it. I was pretty much all alone. I grew up in a family where we were fishermen, for sure, and did it a lot. My grandfather was probably the biggest influence there. I think one of my earliest memories happens to be us kind of waking up, dark 30, him waking me up out of bed, and he had this little like a one-man wooden boat, this little custom-built boat back in South Carolina that he bought off a guy, and it was actually powered by a trolling motor that you steered with your feet. It was just it was meant for one man, but he'd throw a little padded cushion on top of the live well, and we grew up in this area kind of on the cusp of the low country in South Carolina, so it's a bunch of like private ponds and that sort of thing that we just grew up fishing for brim and bass and all of that. So we had this. My grandfather was just a diehard fisherman, mounted bass on the wall, a million stories, just like a really great angler and a hunter as well. And I guess we all just kind of picked up on different pieces of his personality. He was into fishing, he was into hunting. My brother took more to the hunting side. I took a little more to the fishing. But we all did a little bit of everything. But when I got that fly rod, I didn't find out until many years later. My great grandfather was a fly fisherman, and today I have some of his books and things and little notes. He's dog-eared pages, and so there's a little bit of a family history there, but it definitely skipped a couple of generations. And so when I got that rod, I was pretty much on my own, and at that point, there's no internet, there's, obviously a couple books and things like that. But, as things tend to do, you go through these childhood phases. And so I had it. We lived on a pond, and I'd walk around that pond fishing for brim and probably throwing some poppers as best as I can remember. But that was so long ago. And then it, just kind of went back into tradition, or, spin fishing and that sort of thing. And the fly rod got put away for a long time until around after college or so, when I met my wife at the University of South Carolina, Aiken. She was playing basketball there. I was just, academic, and we met in college and have been together, almost 13 years now or so. But her family is from the Midwest. And so when I start dating her, they're really still in touch with their Midwest roots. They have a cabin up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And, eventually was accepted by the family enough to be brought along up to the UP, the Upper Peninsula. And the first time I set eyes on this river that their cabin's on, that was really one of the first times where the fishing bug came back. So there had been a good, I don't know, 10, 15 years of not really doing much, by way of fishing. And all of a sudden we're out on this river, and, my father-in-law took me out, and we're spin fishing. We're catching, it's a tremendous smallmouth river and pike, and there's some muskie in there as well, but it's mostly smallmouth and pike river. And we're catching them on traditional, gear, throwing Rapalas and stuff like that. And I think it just hit me all of a sudden. I was like, God, this would be an amazing place to throw a fly rod. But I didn't own one at the time and everything. But it was just that place just rekindled something in me that just felt the need to do it a little different way and to get back into the fly fishing. And I've been going up there with the family ever since, and heading up there this fall. And it's been a long time since I've thrown a spin rod up there. So it was that place and her family that just kind of, in a weird way, just brought everything full circle. And, that was probably about 10 years ago or so, where it came back with a vengeance.
Wow. That is cool how this came together. So it was really your wife partly. And I love the basketball, the connection too, because that was my sport. So maybe we'll dig into that a little bit. I'm curious on, positions and stuff. But let's just go back to, Tennessee. We're kind of in the middle. It's cool. Tennessee's also in a really cool place in the country, right? You're surrounded by, you're kind of in the middle. Do you feel like you're in the middle of the country, or what is Tennessee?
No, I still feel very, southeastern.
Yeah.
We're Chattanooga is just right off the Georgia border. So,
yeah,
we're still close enough to family and friends back in Georgia and South Carolina. But it's a very interesting place. It was those trips to the UP, we were always passing through Chattanooga, whether we were coming from South Carolina, where we were going to school, or the many years we lived in Georgia, we were always driving through Chattanooga, like, oh, it's such a beautiful town. And then about the time that we were done with all the academic stuff, we were kind of like, well, where do we want to live? And it's always been that town that we've passed through. It's so beautiful. And then you start doing research, and, there are a lot of years there where, like, Outside Magazine, places like that, were just, giving it the credit of, the most outdoorsy town in America. And it's always been on those, highly regarded as just a up and coming kind of outdoorsy town. And so we started, looking at some jobs for my wife in the area. She's a veterinarian, and we found jobs here. We found a house here, and it just all kind of aligned. And since moving here, almost only 5 years now, we've been in Chattanooga. It's home for sure. And I love it. And there's so much water. So there was the aspect of trying to find work and housing and all of that. But for me, obviously, as an angler the whole time, it's like, I can't drive over any body of water without, man, I want to fish that. And this place is, it's kindling for that kind of fire. It's, there's so much water. You can't look one direction or another, drive 5 minutes without crossing a creek or a big river or lake. We're just blessed with an abundance of water. So when I was looking at Chattanooga as a potential, there were lakes, rivers, creeks, everything. And I saw the budding community here. There was a fly shop in town briefly, when we first moved here, and I started meeting people there, and there was a little culture happening, and I think we've been able to really expand upon that. I mean, it's really something now. But yeah, it was just kind of we just took a chance and knew that there was a lot of potential here. But yeah, it definitely still feels southeastern because we're just down in this corner, but there's just so much opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. And I said middle of the country, but what I meant was middle of the East. I mean, you're kind of, you are down a little south, but you're not. Yeah. When you look at it, I mean, yeah, you're almost in the middle of the East area, right? You're surrounded by.
The weather quickly lets you know that you're still in the southeast. People drive through and you see the pictures and the hilly, almost mountainous backgrounds, and people have a tendency to think we're in the mountains, but 600 feet of elevation is kind of the average ground floor of the Chattanooga Valley here, and it's a muggy little town, but it still gets that southeastern hot weather. But man, it's a great place to live.
Yeah, it's funny that it's all relative, but we were just last week up in Alaska in near Denali, 20,000, right? 20,000 feet high mountain. And it all puts it in perspective because every place you go to, right, everything's got some cool little thing, whether that's a new stream or, some outdoor activity. So, we're going to dig into today, I want to dig into Tennessee a little bit for those folks and Tennessee has come up a number of times on the show. We just haven't really dug into specifically some of the waters and species. But yeah, I want to dig into that today and just talk about some of the fishing opportunities, and we'll bring it back to the fly shop for sure. But maybe let's start there as far as if somebody was kind of on their way, maybe is in Tennessee living there, or maybe going to be traveling, visiting, something like that. What would you start them out with as far as the opportunities there? Are there a number of different species you can kind of hit up there?
Yeah. I mean, like I was saying, the landscape and kind of the elevation mostly dictate that we have more abundance of warm water fisheries than we do, cold water fisheries. The vast majority of Tennessee's cold water fisheries are, tailwaters from dams, which we're kind of in the heart of the Tennessee River Valley that runs through Chattanooga, Knoxville, and that area. I mean, it's, 12th, I think. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's like the 12th largest river watershed in the nation. And so there's a lot of dams that come from it. And the Tennessee River dams don't specifically have trout, but a lot of the tributaries do. So more notable ones being, Hiwassee rivers, and then further up into the northeast corner of the state, you really do get into more of that trout type of landscape where, still tailwaters, but a lot of natural streams as well. You've got the South Holston and Watauga, pretty notable rivers, and then along the more mountainous border side of the state on the far east that kind of runs into the Appalachian Mountains, you've got all the Smoky Mountains. I mean, that's probably, I would assume, brings more anglers to trout fishing in Tennessee than the tailwaters. It's a very popular, beautiful spot, abundance of streams, and a lot of that trickles down from the northeast, down to Tellico River and some places, and it all kind of ends eventually, and then kind of goes over into Georgia, North Carolina. But the bit of cold water fishing that we have is mostly here in the eastern corridor of the state and up in the mountainous areas. And then, of course, tailwaters spread sporadically out through the region. Tim Ford Dam produces the Elk River drainage for trout, and Caney Fork and a lot of these trout streams that also double over as great fisheries for other things like smallmouth and striper and things like that. So as far as the cold water fisheries go, we might be a little more limited as a whole, as a state, but there are these great tailwaters, famed tailwaters, and then a lot of the smaller smokies and things like that. But the stuff that has taken up a lot of my time is the warm water fishery. Again, there's so much water here, and it's just smallmouth and largemouth and gar and muskie, and and the muskie kind of pertain a little more to the cold water fisheries, but they kind of double over a lot of times in places that are a little bit of both. It's a lot to take in. I'm still just scratching the surface, really.
Right. Yeah, it is. It's pretty amazing because Tennessee, Memphis, Nashville, Chattanooga, all these major, name cities that it's pretty cool. And then you add on, like you said, this diversity of fishing opportunities, which is pretty amazing. So you're in Chattanooga. And you're the only fly shop there now?
Yes, we're the sole fly shop for the area. And, there's a few other shops within reaching distance. Most of the cities you named have a fly shop, Nashville and Knoxville and some of the smaller towns with trout waters, definitely along the Smokies. There's lots of shops, but for the Chattanooga area, we're the fly shop.
You're the one.
Yeah.
How did I want to jump into just a little on the fly shop because that's going to be a piece of this today before we jump into some other opportunities. But how did the shop? So take us there real quick. What did that look like? So you sounds like there was a shop there and then it moved out. When did that decision come where you're like, okay, this is it?
Yeah. I guess it kind of goes back to what I was doing beforehand. So I'd out of college, my wife was in vet school. I was just all in, after that rekindling back up in Michigan, and we were living in Athens, Georgia, and I was fly fishing just nonstop, and we were, we didn't have any kids at the time, and I was just all in, and I had a job as a graphic designer, but I was just fishing nonstop, and I started getting to a point where I wanted to contribute to a couple magazines, and I was starting to put out some feelers for different stories, and had some luck getting published in like American Angler and a few other small publications, and had some talks with the editors there, and at some point they posted like, hey, the Morris Media Group that owned American Angler and Fly Tyer Magazine and Gray's Sporting Journal was looking for someone to head up their kind of digital marketing and management and social media and all that. And so I put my name in the hat and ended up getting that job. And that was kind of where I first got into the industry. And so I was off and running with that. And I was, running these websites and social media and marketing platforms for those magazines and starting to write more and more. And that, it was a full-time job and was there for several years. And I'm super thankful for those years. I met, it was a lot of dream come true type stuff, kind of a pinch me type thing, where I was eventually at the helm as an editor for a smaller publication within that network called the Angling Report. It was something that was around for about 30 years or so. Don Causey had started that operation, and it was kind of known as if it's best put as kind of a gear or a travel guide to the best fly fishing around the world. And it was all like user supported. So it was a very small publication, but it was for guys who were just
into
gung ho about travel fly fishing. And they would go on trips, and essentially we would do reports on lodges, locations, what's new, what's happening. And that was a lot of fun because it also just provided me a crazy opportunity to just start traveling, like right out of the gate. That when Morris bought that publication, I was still the young guy in the group, and no one really had the time, and they didn't know who was going to take over. And they were like, I was like, what about me? I kind of just put my hand up, and they were like, let's give him a shot. And so for several years, I was helping put that title together, and I was being sent to all over the Bahamas. The travel industry is really saltwater specific. That's kind of where a lot of the money is, and a lot of the attention of anglers is spent in saltwater. So I was, being sent around and doing a lot of bone fishing and red fishing and tarpon. And so I was just spoiled, just absolutely spoiled. And it felt like things were going really good. And then here's 2020. COVID did a number on magazines in general. Everyone kind of has everyone knows, magazines are not in their heyday, leading up to 2020, but 2020 did it no favors.
No.
And all of a sudden all the ads start drying up because lodges and travel was a big, the vast majority of the ad budget for putting these titles together. And so, just saw a little bit of the writing on the wall there, and
Mm-hmm.
was kind of fearful of where things were going. And up to that point, a friend of mine, the shop that was here when I first moved here, it closed down, and for whatever reason, and a good friend of mine actually started the Hatch Outfitters. He, Nate Hefner, we lovingly call him the Godfather of the shop. We got a little shrine to him over at the beer bar in the shop, in a special mug for him, because he was such a big part of it. But he owned the building, had a vacant space, saw the need, and he started the Hatch. And then within a little while of starting it and COVID popping up, that's when I kind of approached him like, hey, I'm looking for something long term. And it was kind of I don't think ever a real long-term goal of his. It was just, he knew we needed one. He had the opportunity and the know-how to get it started. And so right there, we signed the paperwork. I bought the company and I bought it. It was still pretty young, in its infancy and everything. But I bought the Hatch and took over in May of 2020. So wow. For anyone who needs a historical timeline, everything was shut down. There was the looming feeling of like, is this the end of America and the world? And then all of a sudden I'm trying to talk to my wife about a business loan, and thank God for her, man. She's she's put up with a lot.
Man is a woman, right? Or whatever the saying is. It's like, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was kind of a crazy, at the time it seemed like a real risk, but it's not the first time I entertained the idea of a shop. I just never was in the place and time. And yeah, so I took over the Hatch then and there. And ever since we've just been on a mission to grow the shop and make it, a real fly shop that when people come in, they're kind of, everything you need, and it's a really cool environment. So it's done really well.
At what point when you're doing, in that shop, after 2020, and 2020 was, I always try to think, was it 2020 or was it 2019 when it's the COVID? But it was 2020, right? Was that when it started? Was it going in 2019 too? I can't remember.
I remember the first being around March of 2020.
Yeah. So that's right. It was going in 2019, but nobody knew, right? But
yeah, I was. The reason I'm horrible with dates.
Me too.
I don't even know it's my own birthday most times, but I do remember that specifically because I was in the Everglades on a DIY trip. We drove all the way down, drug a skiff down there, and we're cool. Fishing for a few days down in the northern Everglades. And I think when we were launching the boat, because we were camping, there was something on the radio, like flipping through, hearing something about some disease and some virus. And then we just went fishing, and sure. On the way home, I think it was in the matter of like a 3 or 4 day period, we were listening to a similar broadcast and we were like, oh God, like what's happening? Like we felt the need to get back home. So it really happened for me around that trip. And a few months later, who would have known?
Today's episode is sponsored by Country Financial. Dalton is a local insurance agent with Country Financial who thrives in helping families and community members through the power of education. and proper insurance coverage in life's worst disasters. The unexpected will happen, so it's always best to make sure your assets and life are protected. Way back in episode 20, Deck Hogan was on the podcast, and he told one very powerful story about their trip recently that they took that year. They had, it was like a month-long excursion. They had their new truck. They had a trailer with all their gear, and it was stolen. It was stolen and completely gone. It was just a great reminder that all of that, that's the worst case scenario, but it can happen, and make sure to have your stuff protected. Dalton specializes in working with outdoor gear. He loves the outdoor space. He loves fishing and hunting and all the people around it. So if you want to connect with Dalton, you can go right now to wetflyswing.com/country. And that'll direct you right into Dalton's page, and you can get more information and check in with him. That's the best way to support this podcast is by clicking over to Country Financial. That's wetflyswing.com/country. Okay, back to the show. So once you got going in your shop, so now that's 2020. Now it's, we're going into 23 at the end, the end of this year. Have you really felt that thing where it's like, okay, this was the right decision? Like, did that click on the shop early or later?
Oh, yeah.
Has that happened? Yeah.
No, it was, again, I think my buddy Nate, who had sold me the shop, he might have even had a little seller's remorse, like,
sure,
okay, man, if you're sure you want to do this, because again, things just look so dire. And then I think it was not but a month or two later, because the shop had been closed, about a month before I bought it. It was closed when I bought it, and we opened it back up, and people started trickling in, and we were doing masks, and we were doing offering like curbside pickup, and within a couple months, it was like, oh, something's happening. Looking back at the books of where business was before and afterwards, there's this just whole push of social isolation, but people were looking for an outlet, and it was just it was pretty apparent within like 4 months that like something big was happening, and all of a sudden, we're selling more, so we're buying more, and we never had the option to really be the store that came in with huge financial backing and just everything all at once. But people in this town, in Chattanooga, and visitors as well, we've had a lot of out-of-state business and pass-through business and everything, but people have been so good to us. It's again, like I keep finding myself in these kind of like pinch me
That's awesome
moments, and I have a tendency to kind of feel a little bit of like it's luck, but I think it's been a set of decisions one after another that have just led me through this passion, and that's been huge, big part of this. But yeah, it's crazy how much we've grown in the last couple of years. And
that's what it sounds like to me from just hearing your story here quickly, is that, I mean, you put your time in, talking about the angling report and doing all the, getting into the industry, traveling and, just connecting to people, right? And probably all that led right up to, the opportunity to be like, well, yeah, sure, I can do a fly shop if I'm already writing for Gray's Journal and stuff like this, and traveling. So I want to talk maybe a little more about the traveling, because I'm really interested in that as well, and salt versus fresh and other destinations around the country. But let's jump into a little bit on just back to Tennessee, do a little circle around the state for a little bit, and then we'll take it back to maybe some other travel stuff. But so you were talking about just some of these spots. You got kind of obviously the Smoky Mountains, one of the biggest destinations, in the country. You got more of the cold water stuff, and then you got a lot of the kind of warmer water stuff. If somebody comes into your shop, say today, and they say, hey, I'm looking to do some fishing, some fly fishing, what do you tell them if they don't have exactly, they say trout or smallmouth? What do you tell them?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. The trout is obviously the backbone of fly fishing.
Is that when people come into your shop? When they come into your shop, do they, out of the people that come in, like just random people, what percentage are coming in thinking trout, and then versus other stuff?
It's always heavily skewed towards the trout for sure. And then what we end up doing is, sometimes a good bit of convincing and, like, hey, have you ever thought of trying some smallmouth fishing? Because what we're really, something that we have in our backyard that I never experienced in my travels throughout the Southeast and fishing warm water places is we have, Chattanooga's just got some really beautiful landscape and these big hillsides and these deep river gorges that, if you were to blindfold and drop someone off in these places, they would, I don't think they would know where they were. It's, when you look at magazines and film, it might be something that someone's like, oh, am I in the New Zealand backcountry? I mean, we're in this deep,
no kidding,
rocky, boulderous gorge, and there's crystal clear water, but we're fishing for native smallmouth and
wow.
red eye bass and things like that. And it's more akin to like, kind of spot and stalk type fishing. And we've always got that stuff. And then in particular times of year, like we're coming up on fall right now, this is my favorite time of year in Chattanooga because the options are kind of endless. We're starting our trout stocking on local streams and that sort of thing. But in the summer months, we might convince a few people to go out and try something a little different and take that same 5-weight setup that your trout setup, and hey, let's just change the flies and the tactic up a little bit and let you hike in the backcountry and see what you can do on some of these warm water streams. But definitely we set up people on trout trips and gear as much as they want to, for sure.
As they want to. Yeah. Okay, well, let's take it down that for a little bit. If it was a trout and we were coming in and we were saying, hey, I want to do some trout fishing, then what's the next step? What would you tell the folks? Again, it's fall, now. I guess this is a good time. What would you be telling people there?
Yeah, so local options that we have in Chattanooga would be the first thing because, it's nice to have an option within 30 minutes. Again, so we have our streams like North Chickamauga Creek and Big Soddy that we've worked with Tennessee Wildlife Agency, TWRA. We've worked with them to develop these streams. They weren't part of any stocking program. And as a shop, we kind of reached out to them like, hey, we've got an idea, and they've been really receptive. And now we've created these fisheries where we're stocking some of those gorge creeks that kind of
with rainbow
tributary into, and stocking them with rainbow trout. And there's still the native smallmouth within those. And so we have that local option set, but mostly, we're going to tell people about the Hiwassee River. That drainage is just so big and so much space, and they put a lot of fish in, and it's really scenic. So that one's easy to sell. And, if people are looking to float, we kind of set up float trips for them on the Hiwassee, and as well we do the same on the Elk River, which is kind of halfway between here and Nashville. The Elk River is a tail race that comes out of Tim's Ford Reservoir, and that one is a lot more private property and less leg room, but a great float trip. And we have guides that we work with on that river as well. And then, the people that are a little more DIY, they don't want a guide or they don't want to approach big water. Yeah, we send them up to the Tellico, and we're quick to always suggest that when visiting those regional areas, whether it's Tellico or the Smokies, hey, I'm happy to sell you a rod and get you a set on some flies. But, one good thing about this industry is I think we've always got each other's backs. And so I'm quick to tell people hey, pop in Tellico Outfitters, go see go see Cody over there. He's got that place dialed in, or if you're up in the Smokies, go see Chad over at Smoky Mountain Angler. And I think that's throughout the magazines, the shop, any history I've had, and just being an angler as well, the kind of brotherhood and the community in fly fishing is so important. So we try and live that motto a little bit, and spread the love a little, and just, it's a big community, and we're all kind of working at the same thing. So we'll tell people to visit those shops if they go to real regional fisheries that are kind of a little more out of our range and expertise. But yeah.
Gotcha. So that's it. So Chattanooga, like you said, you got and is the Hiwassee, how close is that to Chattanooga?
Both Hiwassee and Elk River, are right at an hour.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's nothing too bad. Tellico's 2 hours. Your Smokies and some of that are more 2.5 to 3.
It's all right there.
Yeah,
gotcha.
Yeah. So it's if you're a trout angler in the Chattanooga area, you're kind of used to putting the rubber to the road a little bit to scratch that itch until we created those local fisheries with Tennessee Wildlife Resource Agency. And now you'd be surprised, at a Thursday afternoon on a local stream in Chattanooga, you might pop out there and find, 12 people with fly rods spread out throughout the creek
there you
system. So it's pretty cool.
Yep, that's it. That's really cool. Nice. So that's kind of you got the trout game, and then you've got some, and we've talked a lot about smallmouth too. That's a super amazing species that's out there. And then as you guys go, let's just take it through the year a little bit. So, we're in the September, October, as you start getting into, closer to winter. I'm not even sure, exactly what your winters look like, but what does that look like as you look into towards Christmas, like fishing wise?
Yeah. I mean, one of the best parts, Dave, about this particular region is just the calendar. I mean, it's awesome. We fish year round. It never gets too cold. I mean, we definitely get it, around January, February. It weeds out the less diehard anglers, but the fall is, in my mind, it's kind of funny. People know me. I didn't grow up. I learned to fly fish warm water, and that's kind of always been where my heart is. But I do love trout fishing, and especially in the fall. But fall is also, I start out as a trout guy, and then as we get a little bit colder, I'm already thinking about muskie season.
Muskie.
That one's it's not a very big. There aren't a lot of people out there chasing muskie. A lot of people try it once or twice. As far as the diehards go, we've got a pretty good set of diehard people in Chattanooga. But yeah, once it turns from fall to winter, I'm all in on the muskie until spring arrives again. And
really? So that's it.
And we're back chasing trout again, and the trout fishing throughout the winter here and there as well.
That's good. Well, why is and I'm going to touch on the trout here after this, but so the muskie, what is that? Why is the muskie? I mean, so it sounds like November or something like that, you start thinking muskie, and then it goes through until say March or something like that. Is that kind of what muskie looks like?
Yeah, kind of November to May-ish, depending on temperatures. So we're at the southernmost range of the muskie. So what that means is essentially, you take somewhere like the place we go up in the Upper Peninsula, their muskie season's almost the opposite of ours. They're kind of winding down right now, and we're all gearing up, and it's mainly to do with the southeast and our temperatures. We get up to very dangerous water temperature levels for muskie during the summer months. And so it's just naturally kind of the season is always leaned towards the colder flows. So that's it. And I mean, it's something to occupy the brain during those cold months. And it's something about that cold weather and musky fishing. They just kind of go hand in hand. It's something big suck fest, it's
sure.
You're out there freezing, you're throwing, gigantic flies for fish that you just start to believe aren't there, right? And then, you take a bite of a sandwich and look down and one's sitting next to your fly, and it's there's reasons it's not for everyone, but we love it and promote it as much as we can, and try and get people on trips to check it out.
Where are you hitting around? I mean, what does that look like as far as the waterways? Is it close around Chattanooga?
There's some stuff within, you know, kind of that hour range, you know, that's where it kind of spreads out, but it's actually more known to the fisheries around Cumberland Plateau and a little bit further out Chattanooga. But again, you know, we're kind of used to traveling an hour or so, but yeah, those fisheries are pretty. People keep those pretty close to the chest.
That's right. Yeah, those are pretty tight. Yeah. So if we went out, could somebody come into the shop with you and hit you up and you can hook them up with a guide, or what would that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. We're all about that. And yeah, we've got some guides that dedicate their winter to muskie. And we try and give them as much business as possible. Yeah, so we've got the flies, the rods, and all of that. So on a gear perspective, yeah, we're all ready to go.
You got the gear.
Yeah.
How does that guide thing work with so it sounds like you've got just independent guides out there, you know, of just kind of through the industry, and then
yeah.
Then you connect them. They're not. You don't necessarily have staff on your shop that are working in the shop, sort of thing, yet.
Not yet. Yeah. So we're hoping that this fall is going to be the start of our actual in-house guide service. But what we've essentially done is found guides in the region, ones who are really known for being some of the best on their particular watersheds. And we've kind of established relationships there, and we send them, you know, a bunch of people on float trips, and it's kind of worked out very harmoniously for everyone. That's not been to this point like a big part of the business model, so to speak. But yeah, this fall we're hoping to ramp up our own in-house guiding. That's, you know, going to start off in the traditional kind of cold water fashion, and maybe dabble into a little bit of the warm water stuff. But yeah, and it, you know, it's good for everyone. Again, it's a part of that community thing. It's like, well, we could go guide this musky river, but you know, why step on this guy's toes when he's already really good at it? And if we can establish that relationship, let's just prop him up. Let's just send him some business.
Love that.
And have a little bit more of a symbiotic relationship. Yeah.
Right on. That's a great idea. So you're connecting people. If they come in, you can connect them with the best guides in your region or your area.
Exactly.
And if it's muskie or trout, like you said, the Smokies, there's a couple of shops up north. How many shops are there around? I mean, just guesstimating, I guess, Tennessee, the state itself. Do you have a rough idea?
You know, there's the big ones that stand out. You know, Fly South in Nashville's a big reputable shop, and then there's some stuff up towards Knoxville and Teleco Outfitters, which I'd mentioned, but I'd say there's probably 5 or 6, you know, that stand out to me. You know, dedicated fly shops.
There you go. Yeah, dedicated. Right. Cool. So that's 5 or 6. Yeah, probably right around all the major areas.
Yeah.
Memphis is. We haven't talked much about Memphis. That's down in the corner.
Yeah, I don't know much about Memphis, to be honest.
Yeah, you don't. You haven't been down there too much.
You know, college football games when I was back in the day.
It's a long ways.
Yeah, it is. It's a little bit of a haul.
Yeah, it's a little haul.
When you look at Tennessee, that's a long ways away for sure, and they're in a much lower, warmer elevation than even us over there. So it's the big muddy, you know, the Mississippi River.
That's right.
Over there.
Yeah,
and I'm sure there's lots of opportunities in that region as well, but you don't hear much about it.
Yeah, it's the other side. I mean, literally, it's on the border, way over there. It's on your way to the White River, right? It's all sorts of. There's as you go around, the country. As I've been doing this, just talking to, you know, we've done episodes every state. That's the take home message, and that's what's fun to me, is that learning about these states, you know, because if you never went to Tennessee, you would never know about the resources, right? You might not even know their Smoky Mountains are right there, you know, in your area. So. Yeah. So, well, let's keep this rolling on. So we've got the muskie, and it sounds like you're fishing those pretty hard through the winter.
Yeah. And there's some stuff in between too. You know, it's not just trout and muskie. I mean, you know, this is about the time of year I'm also a lot of our striped bass that are kind of in these reservoirs. You know, they run up the trout streams during the summer month for cold water and to gorge themselves on trout. And then this is the time of year where they return to the reservoirs. And so we have access to some pretty good striper bites, during the fall. Winter time, there's some of that, but also just good bass fishing out on the lake. I mean, here in Chattanooga, just the lake just north of town, Lake Chickamauga, it's one of the best bass fishing lakes in the nation. A top fiver for sure. And there's huge bass out there. And
for smallmouth
this time of year, largemouth.
Oh, for largemouth. Gotcha.
Yeah. There's smallmouth in there as well. And a ton of spotted bass, but, the lake fishing for bass is really good in the winter as well. But you start to get into kind of a different category once you leave the trout, muskie included, where, this is boat water. You need some sort of vessel to even really get out there and get after it. And that is one thing about our region. While we do have a bunch of these smaller creeks, like I was talking about, and some of the trout fisheries, it's really known for big water. So the minute you're waterbound, whatever vessel of your choice, your options open up like exponentially. There's a lot more out there once you're in a boat.
Gotcha. What's your boat of choice these days?
I'm running a Hog Island. It's kind of funny. It's just happened where both of my employees also have Hog Islands. And it's, our landscape, again, you can go from these big water reservoirs to really skinny, rocky creeks. It's a very kind of naturally rocky area. So, I've ran some fiberglass stuff before and seem to always get myself in the hot water there. And so if you're familiar with the hogs, they're plastic. It's a fully plastic skiff.
We did a little series on drift boats, kind of history and stuff a while back. So this is kind of interesting. I have not seen or talked to the Hog Island folks yet. So this is cool.
Yeah. And they actually do make an all plastic drift boat as well. But what we're talking about, it's like a 16-foot skiff, really wide platform that you can just beat up, whether you have a jet or a prop or however you choose to set them up. Some people row them, set up with row systems, and you set it up more like a skiff, more like a drift boat, or a little bit of, a Swiss Army knife, which is kind of how I've set mine up. But yeah, so, need a boat to access all these water types, and we're poling in the summer. We're poling carp flats and fishing for carp and buffalo and gar on the flats. And so I need something that I can pole. And then, the fall comes around and maybe chasing those striper and need something with a trolling motor and get below the dams or out on the reservoirs. And then, you either own 3 boats or you own one that's good enough at all 3 things.
Right. Do you have 3? Do you have one for each?
No. I've got one just set up in that Swiss Army knife style with a poling platform, and
what's the specs?
About to set it up for rowing.
I'm just curious for the specs. What is the one that's the Swiss Army knife of the Hog Island boat? Is it just that?
Well, they only make the one skiff model, but it's just how you set it up.
Oh, gotcha.
Do you have a front casting
poling
platform, a poling platform, a rowing frame?
Well, they've got one here. I think this is the one on their website I'll put a link in the show notes. But it's, cool. It's a boat. It's got a huge motor. I mean, it's got like a giant motor. Then it's got a pulling platform. It's got oars, like full on drift boat oars. I mean, this thing has everything on it. And then it's only it looks like it's like I don't know what that is, a 14, 16-foot boat, but it's got all this stuff on it.
Yeah. They've recently come out with a smaller model, which I've not gotten eyes on. I think it's very in prototype right now, but it's like 16.4, really, really wide boat, really stable platform, which is important if you're, going to do some of the guiding that we're looking at. And, but yeah, it's kind of cool. It's, we're figuring it out.
So a boat is a good, tool to have out there. Well, and you mentioned again, so now we talked muskie, you mentioned striper, bass, gar. I mean, all that stuff is wintertime is great, starting kind of this time of year through the winter. What else are we missing here species-wise? I guess you could add brook trout, right? If you want to talk trout to that or...
Yeah. And that's it's kind of interesting. If you look, if you were to go, I'm here at my house right now, if you were to go up and look at my kind of rod storage area, it's funny, a lot of 11 weights, 10 weights. That's the muskie striper thing. A lot of 8 weights as well. And then, I've got a couple 5s, and then I've got a lot of 3 weights, that's, if that tells you anything, that's like where my interests are. It's like,
yeah,
I do do a lot of the big predator chasing stuff, whether it's streamers for trout on some tailwaters or muskie or striper. But, then the majority of my trout rods are all small, so that I just love getting in, the blue line stuff, chasing, whether it, not necessarily brook trout, although we do have some of that in the region closer to Tellico and some of those areas, but just wild trout streams, 3 weights, 4 weights, dry flies, and hungry wild fish. I mean, that's something that we can always set people up for as well. But it's funny how my interests are generally towards like one spectrum or the other. You're way more likely to find me personally on a brook trout stream or a muskie stream than you are to maybe bump into me on the Hiwassee or something.
On the Hiwassee,
like that.
gotcha.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I love both. I love it all, but those two spectrums, the small intimate or the big predator stuff, is really what does it for me.
That's it. Right on. Well, we've kind of circled around here a little bit. I think we've talked about a number of the species. What, so as you get into May, June, then you're back around to what are you looking at there if somebody's thinking about hitting your area?
Yeah. So at that point, tailwater trout's still going. We're always gonna, that's kind of year round. The tailwaters, that's the beauty of a tailwater, right? It's kind of more stable water temperatures that kind of, produce the right setting year round for trout. But for me personally, I'm definitely on top of the polling platform, staring at a mud flat somewhere, looking for carp. And if you're familiar with buffalo,
no, what's the deal with buffalo?
Buffalo are something that I knew nothing about before moving to this region, and then have quickly kind of like fallen in love with them in a sense of just the challenge. Carp are hard enough to feed, but these buffalo, which to someone who maybe didn't know any better, might think that they are a carp species. I've even heard them mistakenly called like a buffalo carp, but they're actually not at all. They're a native species that we get them in both smallmouth buffalo and black buffalo, and they're kind of big, scaly, ventral mouths that are bottom feeders like a carp. Big scales on the side, but they're a native species, and they're really interesting. They're these big, gentle giants, and they live just so long. Some of them, I think they've been studied up to like 65 years old or something. Wow. They're just these ancient fish swimming around, and they'll really humble you because they're mostly in a sense kind of a filter feeder. It's interesting. Right. They just swim around all day, just hovering up the bottom of these flats, and they're looking for clams and small bugs. But like 40% of their diet is like compacted sand because they just hover up everything. And so it's really, really tough you have to place a fly perfectly, or they have to see it. And it's, but once they're hooked, you might see some of that on our Instagram, but once they're hooked, they're a powerhouse. They're a little freight train.
Are they as challenging as carp?
In a sense, more so, and in another way, not. Where with carp, when we're pulling on them, you have to make that the minute you see them. If you don't have a shot just about ready, it's not going to generally pan out for you because they're very weary. The buffalo are not weary, but they're hard to feed.
Yeah.
Sometimes we can get a lot closer to the buffalo, but and then at the same time when we're chasing those, there's usually on those same sets of flats, we've got a lot of spotted gar that are kind of cruising those same habitats. And in the early spring, they're mostly mating, so you'll see them in big pairs. It's still fun to watch, but not really great for fishing. But as it rolls into the summer, you might be carp fishing. All of a sudden you see the silhouette of a gar crossing a flat, and you might have a few seconds to pick up a different rod and quickly sling a streamer in that direction. And so we're out on the flats doing a lot of summer fishing. And we do, have a lot of that available to us. It's kind of, people don't associate obviously flats fishing with a landlocked state like Tennessee, but all of this water, these reservoirs, the tributaries like pouring into those reservoirs, they just provide a lot of like really skinny water, bays and type of habitat where we can get out there and sight fish, which is, coming from that background with the Angling Report and the magazines where I was doing all this saltwater. I mean, if you gave me one last trip, I'm going to go to the salt for sure. It's just kind of, that's my love. I do love it, but I live in Tennessee. And so I've found ways to kind of accommodate and scratch that itch of sight fishing. Cause that's the first thing that I think draws people to bonefish and redfish and a lot of those saltwater fisheries. Is just, man, seeing a moving target and trying to place a fly and all the anxiety and excitement that goes with it. That's everything. So we're kind of finding and recreating that here in our local fishery. So it's pretty cool.
Wow. Yeah, you're kind of like, you can do it year round almost, right? And
No, I was just gonna say, and that's also the time of year where, we want to get up and chase those brook trout,
Right.
Pair of shorts and a good hiking boot and like get up there deep in the backcountry and look for some wild fish.
I know. Yeah, you're painting a really cool picture because, it's the diversity, it sounds like, which makes that area pretty cool, is that you do have trout, but at the same time you've got, like this fish, buffalo, like these species that I think, do you see that in your fly fishing? I mean, you've been doing this a little while now. Have you seen that evolution of where it was kind of like, well, it was trout, the trout from the river runs through it, but now it's like buffalo and everything. Have you witnessed that a little bit?
Oh yeah. Yeah. 100%. And I love seeing the fringier species get their due, I'm a huge gar guy. That's also what we were talking about spotted gar, like crossing on flats and being in that habitat, but the Tennessee River itself, this big, huge river we're on with all the, it's reservoirs, dams and docks and barge traffic and everything. But there's a lot of like long-nosed gar out there. And, I've done several stories now on gar and trying to kind of paint a better picture of that species, because I think they're such a cool fish. And they are. Going back to childhood memories, I distinctly remember the first time I saw a gar. I was at a friend's lake house in South Carolina, and I saw this, this big yellow like fish hanging out around his dock, and I called my dad down there. I was like, what? Oh, it's just an old gar. And I'm like, well, whatever it is, I love it. I distinctly remember being like, that's a cool fish. Why is everybody kind of maligning this fish or, passing it off? It's just like, what is that? But I've been obsessed with them ever since. And so much so that, I've written some articles but I'm kind of recently finding myself on the cusp of doing something sort of cool. And it was never the intent. I just always fished for gar wherever I've gone, whether it was in the Everglades on trips. And, we like to go down to the Gulf of Mexico on family trips, and I'll chase them down there. And now I'm found myself on the cusp of this really cool opportunity to catch all 5 species of North American gar. And I'm just one away, and it's one that's actually kind of regional to this area. And so I'm like, and it wasn't ever the intent, but it's kind of cool, and thinking about, if there's another story to be told there about just things I've learned across the country chasing these fish.
And you could probably clarify, I'm looking at episode we did, Jon Morris recently, episode 361.
Yeah.
We focused on gar, and he mentioned another guy, I'm not sure if you know, I think more down in that area, but at Professor _ Rivers, I guess he's a gar, kind of like you, probably knows all the, knows all the stuff. But in here, I guess, there's 7. So alligator gar, spotted gar, long-nosed gar, Florida gar, slender gar. Are those all? What are the five? Because you said there were five different subspecies, or
and I've heard the slender thing pop up during like people
maybe
in the shop would be talking about it, but that one I'm not, to my knowledge, is not an actual gar. The one is, as I understand it, you have the five North American, which is the alligator gar. Which is the biggest, most huge, formidable, kind of the one that probably captivates people most. Second biggest size wise, being the long nose gar.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have the spotted gar, which are notably smaller, but probably one that I fish for just about evenly with long nose. And then you have the short nose gar and the Florida gar. And so the one that I have yet to catch, and if anyone's listening to this and you want to make a guy's dreams come true, and you have a good line on a short nose gar hole,
nice.
It would mean a lot to me, and it's something that just in the last couple months I kind of realized, like, oh wow, because I went down to Mississippi on a family vacation and took the skiff down there, and I caught my first alligator gar. And then it like hit me like, oh wow, like I'm a short nosed gar away from catching all of the species of North America. And then outside of North America, there is still, although I believe it Cuban, to be like somewhat, I think it's endangered, is the Cuban gar.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the tropical gar, which is more South America.
Yeah, that's the other. So I did have 7 species there, but the 2 are outside North America. And we will hit you up. I'm hoping there's somebody listening now, at least a person or two that know, because obviously, like I said, we've definitely have some people out in your neck of the woods, and we're going to send them out to your shop for sure if they can hook you up there.
Sure. And my upcoming trip to the Upper Peninsula, I think, there might be an attempt to locate something along our path.
Love that.
To maybe just find that short nosed gar and document it, and maybe try and dovetail the whole endeavor into something bigger than myself. Try and bring awareness to these species, and either an article, kind of got the rough notes in my head of an article I've been writing, but just trying to raise awareness about like these awesome native ancient fish that have really been unnecessarily maligned all these years.
I know that's what Jon was saying in that episode, that they just got hammered, because people didn't understand them, didn't know how amazing they are. So I feel like there's still opportunities, right? Like having folks like you out there and Jon and others, they're like, okay, this is like putting them on the map and saying, hey, we got to protect these species, that they're important. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
Today's episode is sponsored by Range Meal Bars, made in Washington by a small team of passionate outdoor enthusiasts. The Range team only uses the highest quality gluten-free ingredients that they feel good about fueling their outdoor adventures with, and they don't use brown rice syrup as a primary sweetener. Anyone who knows me will tell you that I am a little freaky about bars. I just got back from the store and grabbed myself a few bars. I always love testing and eating everything. My top is always, has always been recently Pro Bars. And now with Range, I've been loving the Range Meal Bar. The cool thing about Range is that not only does it pack some flavor, it packs a powerful punch. And with 700 calories, this thing can save the day if you missed a meal. Even if that's dinner, this thing is going to keep you going. So if you're like me and you always need a bar to keep that body going, that blood sugar flowing, everything going good, then you got to check out Range right now. 700 calories, like I said, a legitimate full meal replacement. The Range bar is small enough to fit in your hand, slides easily into the pocket of your fly vest, pouch, your backpack, whatever you need to do. You can check them out right now, wetflyswing.com/range, RANGE. Check it out. You are going to get a delicious bar that is going to pack a punch and at the same time support a great small company and this podcast. Okay, back to the show. As we dig into this, there's all these topics that keep popping up. I mean, gar, obviously. I always think like, okay, if I was go down there, what would I want to go for if I had to pick one, which is never an easy, question to answer. But gar would be up there because it's just such a unique fish. I mean, I would love, you know what I mean? It's just like gar. I mean, muskie, of course, that's another one for sure. But I don't know what I would say. If somebody said that to you, maybe you've already mentioned that, but what is is it muskie? Is that the one that when you're like, you can only in your area that you could just chase throughout the year?
We've kind of, so a big part of the shop is like, we do a lot of events. We have, like our fall oyster roast is coming up on October 22nd. My dad comes up from South Carolina with a couple bushels of oysters, and we'll have TFO rods there, and we kind of throw a big party, and then we have our spring kickoff. And we also have in the middle of at the beginning of summer, our annual fly fishing tournament, the Anything Goes, where we have essentially set it up as, a multi-species event where you get 1 point for the biggest of any species. So the intent being that you have to catch a lot of species. Get out there and like, it's a really cool format. But the reason I bring it up is it's kind of become like a somewhat of a mascot of the shop and of our tournament. And we have in this area, what do you know about Tennessee tarpon?
Oh, Tennessee tarpon. Wow. I don't know. I know nothing about it.
Yeah. It's kind of it's a misnomer. It's the nickname of the skipjack herring.
Oh yeah,
a herring. Most people would assume it's a big shad, and we have an abundance of it in this area, and they're in different. You target them in different areas throughout the year, but it's one that we've put a lot of people on because there's areas where you can just go below a dam in town, and they're schooling up small bait fish, and they're busting on top water, and it's a very visual kind of fun thing. I mean, they're full on blitzing out there some days. And that species, I think, has been for a lot of people like it's been the gateway drug to warm water fishing, because we get people out there, tell them where to find them, and then they see them blitzing, and shad are flying in the air as they're just swiping through them. And
that's cool.
And you can go out there and throw into them and catch your fill on good days. And it's just, I don't know, it's kind of a fun little side species that's kind of throughout all these, like we're talking about, like the calendar of fishing in this region, peppered in between all of those seasons and times a year are the skipjack. At different times a year they're here, they're there, but they're always kind of omnipresent here. And they're actually a really fun fly rod fish to catch them on a 5 or 6 weight. They get, I think, state records, closer to 5 pounds than 4 pounds. So they don't get particularly huge, but they fight really hard. They jump, they're very acrobatic, and they look like, for all intents and purposes, they look like baby tarpon. They have the same kind of jawline and some of the similar features in the way they jump and shake their heads. And so it's just a real visual kind of fun fishery that's just always it's always an option. I mean? It's always there. And a lot of people have fun with that.
Wow. Another one. So we're making the species list is looking pretty juicy now as we're going into this.
Yeah.
Well, if we just circle around, what else have we missed? Have we missed anything as far as species, time of year, places? I mean, I kind of wanted to take us around Tennessee a little bit, and I think we've done that. We've talked, maybe not as much about like we said, the western part, but it sounds like you could probably connect with somebody, a shop in Memphis, if they wanted to dig into that part of the state.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, probably the one that people might be surprised I didn't spend more time on is the smallmouth, because I do love smallmouth.
I know.
It's again, in our direct region, you're either kind of doing that small creek gorge fishing for smaller smallmouth, like little native fisheries up there, but we also have them in our Tennessee River and the reservoirs, and that's a lot of fun. Smallmouth are, people always kind of laugh at the shop, whether it's a a jar of a certain streamer that we have set up on top of the, sometimes if we sell a lot of a streamer, we'll just throw it in a jar. So there's just 100 of them in a jar, and we'll write little descriptions, this is for, and often I'll write, this one will work for trout, smallmouth, and bass, because I definitely like have a habit of distinguishing smallmouth as a totally different thing.
Yeah.
Like that's a special fish. Not to nothing against, largemouth and spotted bass and that sort of thing. But I feel to lump them in with just bass is just it's a discredit to that species. I mean, they're generally in a little different habitat and they act differently, and they're just such an amazing fish. And again, one that kind of brought me back to fly fishing. So my history with them and everything is pretty great, but we're big on smallmouth for sure.
And the reason I didn't dig into smallmouth in this one, we've actually dug in. I mean, we had 273 Tim Landwehr went into like sight fishing for smallmouth, and obviously these are around the country. Tim.
Tim is amazing.
Yeah.
So he his operation guides on the river that our cabin is on.
Oh wow, there you go, nice.
And the Menominee. So
yeah, that's right. Wow, so you're on the Menominee. Menominee, I can't even say it.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. It's interesting that to be able to say it out loud, because 5 years ago, before Tim and his guys had kind of turned the corner of trying to get the word out about the problems facing the Menominee with the big mine and everything, for years and years before that, because they guide right in front of our house, and apparently we live on one of their more favorite stretches of the river. And I would, they'd be floating by, and I'd offer them a beer because I'm usually out there fishing. Like I'd, invite them, to the dock at the front yard, and like we could give them a beer or a break or anything like that. But
nice.
Historically, it was always like never named the Menominee.
Oh, right.
And even when I was in the magazines, there were a few photo essays in Gray's Sporting Journal from that river, but it was always kind of a somewhere in northern Wisconsin.
Right.
Well,
I think the secret's out now. Yeah.
And for a good reason, right?
Yeah.
Like we're trying to raise awareness about the mine there. And the worst part, well, maybe not the worst part, but for me personally and for my family personally, the projected mine is no more than a quarter mile upstream of our house.
Oh God, that's terrible.
It's pretty much our backyard.
So what is the status? I was going to ask you a little about on the conservation. I love to dig into that where I can, just to say, hey, is there a group? Is there an event? Is there anything? So is that what you would say if people listening now, if they wanted to help get involved, is that one thing, something they can do there?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's an awareness game, and just the more eyes that are on it, the worse the optics look for people trying to sneak in the back door and make these environmental disastrous decisions. I think it becomes harder and harder for them to make those decisions the more people that know about it. And it's a special part of the country and a really, really beautiful river that is worth protecting. And obviously Tim, I'm sure, talked about ways that people can get involved with that. But yeah, it's one of those things that, I don't, it's weird to talk about it out loud now.
Yeah.
Because there's still that
it's still your little baby. It's still your baby.
Keep it secret, keep it safe,
Yeah.
But,
I can imagine with the cabin on it.
Yeah.
That's
it's
really cool.
not a good situation, but those people up there, they're fighting it. So it's good.
Yeah. And I think there's places like, other episodes, Mike Schultz talked about smallmouth as well, kind of Michigan, Huron River. So, that's the cool thing about smallmouth. All over the country, right? I'm not sure. It probably is maybe that species that is everywhere, right? It seems like it is. I've talked whether it's west, east, south, north, right? Smallmouth are kind of everywhere.
Yeah. And wherever they are, people are generally obsessed with them. So.
Yeah. Nice.
But yeah.
Well, I think in that, and just going back to that, the group. So on that deal that's going on, they're trying to build. What's the danger up there? What are they building?
It is a just enormous open pit mine
Yeah.
I can't remember, I don't have the stats in front of me, but like when they list the acreage involved in the pit they want to dig, it's
huge.
It's no small feat. And I want to say it's copper ore.
Yeah, something like that. Right.
But regardless, it's kind of like Pebble Mine and all of these other things. It's a shame that that waterways, especially as an angler, it's especially infuriating, but just in general, it's a shame that these big operations always have to be tied to a waterway and the dangers that then inherently come to that waterway from, whether it's leakage or seepage or just, the list goes on.
It's always the water.
The water pays the price and then the fish and everything tied to that whole ecosystem. So it's just and I think one of the big problems up there is, Canadian mining company tearing up American soil, poisoning, Native American fish. And it's not good.
No.
Whatever can be done, I'm sure they're doing it. And I'm not all that connected because we, usually only get up there once a year, but Tim and those guys have done a good job raising the flag.
I'll definitely connect folks to Tim and we can put some information in the show notes. What is just on this track on down in your area? What is there a conservation group or issue you'd like to highlight just as something that, down more towards Chattanooga, or is everything all good down there?
Well, it's a major watershed with development all on it. And there's things that we definitely need to be more focused on. And, our battles seem to be, very often with, being that so many dams and tailwaters, our fights usually center around Army Corps of Engineers and Tennessee Valley Authority and trying to, just this past year, establish new minimum water flows on the Caney Fork River. And there's just, it's a more modern fight, in a sense of, essentially it takes developed some politicking to get things done. But we're for the most part free of any big disastrous, any kind of, big conservational problems that we're facing at the moment, but they're there, and we hope to address some of those over time and help these fisheries stay healthy.
Right on. Nice. Well, I think I feel pretty good about Tennessee. If I was going to be driving through with the family, we could swing in down through Chattanooga, which is actually one place I've always wanted to go. You know what I mean? That whole part of the country is pretty cool.
Yeah.
We can check in with you. And the winter, now tell me this, if you're coming, when is the time when it gets a little, like, when would be the good time to do a road trip out there, do you think? The best time? If somebody's going to cruise across?
The fall. I mean, now. Get in the car right now.
Just go for it.
Yeah, it's just such a special time of year. I mean, the landscape, the trees are all lit up and the water's cold and clear, and, there's just so much option. But I'd say fall is the particular season that for me just kind of illustrates the beauty of this area. It's such a cool region, lots of great people, lots of stuff to do.
Perfect. Well, I'll do my best. I know there's people on all ages listening, but there's definitely people that are close to retirement, and they love these episodes where we kind of dig into different places in the country because they're going to be traveling around, right? And they're campers or whatever. So hopefully some folks will stop by your place as we go. I want to touch just as we get out of here, the magazines. Are you still, are you doing all of that? Have you cut down on some of that?
No. Yeah. I'm this man. I don't have much time outside of the fly shop. So when I purchased the shop, that was my end run with the Morris Sporting Group, left on good terms with those guys. They're all some of my favorite people to date. I learned so much from them in that time period. But these days, between a wife, 2 kids, and a fly shop that up until very recently I was pretty much running by myself for the majority of that time, just trying to grow it slow and steady. And now, I've got a couple employees, and it buys me a Saturday morning to talk to you, and it's
Right.
like my family's very happy that I'm starting to find maybe a day or two during the week to step away from shop duties. But yeah, it's beyond a full-time gig
That's
at
it.
this point. So yeah, it's a labor of love though. I love that place.
That's good. See, that's the thing you found. Your kind of sounds like you're passionate. We've had that come up a number of times with shop folks that they were doing it and then they got into the shop and then they realized, wow, I literally am stuck in the shop. I can't get out of here, right? But I mean, if you love it, that's great. But if you feel stuck, then maybe. But I think it sounds like you're on track to get some more help. So that's good.
Yeah, you begin to live vicariously through your customers.
Yeah.
you find enjoyment through giving someone that particular streamer or fly, and they go somewhere and send you a picture. You're like, oh, that's great. I it's almost like guiding. You kind of find the enjoyment through the enjoyment of others.
Yeah,
and so that's a big part of the shop. And these days, the biggest compliment someone can give me personally is that they like the shop. That's and we get that a lot. We've been really fortunate. We got a certain vibe, I guess, for lack of a better term, that we've kind of cultivated there. And just last night, Friday afternoons, there's a beer bar built in the shop.
That's right.
There's probably about 10, 12 people up there having an afternoon beer, and it's just such a good community.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
What do you have there? What's on? Do you actually have stuff on tap, or is this out of can?
Yeah, we have 2 taps and then a bunch of cans, and we try and keep it to local. Well, I always tell it's like local-ish plus PBR.
Oh yeah, PBR. Oh, so you don't have any? So yeah, I'm curious about that. Do you guys have the local micro like IPs and all that stuff?
Yeah, we try and support a bunch of our Chattanooga's. One of these towns where you're starting to have a brewery in every kind of borough or neighborhood within Chattanooga. So we try and support those breweries and have local options. So if people maybe come in from out of town, they can try something local, and then the locals can have it as well.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So you can come in there, and so you don't have to wait till Friday. You can grab a beer like midday at the shop.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh nice.
It's all credit goes to Nate, the Godfather, for that idea.
That's a great idea.
The beer bar built in.
Yeah.
It's not gonna make us rich. We don't promote it to the public, but man, it's so good for just the culture, and we're big on events. So again, Oyster Roast Friday night, fly tying nights on the first Friday of each month, and that sort of thing. It just it never hurts to have a cold beer around when you're doing that stuff.
Exactly. Love that. What's your beer? What's your beverage of choice if you had to pick your one on Friday night?
Tequila.
Oh, there you go.
No, yeah, I love a good craft beer. But I'm a tequila guy. But we don't serve tequila or anything like that.
Not yet.
If you ask me personally, it's probably a nice
tequila. All right, good. Right on. Well, you've painted a great picture, and I definitely am going to hit you up here down the line. I hope some people check you out. I just want to take it away here. Just a couple, like on the travel, you mentioned you've been around. I mean, when you look at the travel, if you do get that time to do a trip, out there on salt, where are you heading? Do you have a lodge or a place that you really have been wanting to get to, or one that you've been to in the past?
It's for me, it comes down to species a little bit more. I'm a tarpon guy.
Okay. Yep. Tarpon.
I love tarpon, and anywhere I can chase them.
Tarpon's number one.
I do kind of follow. I've got my guides, right? That's something interesting that kind of happens in salt a little bit more maybe than in fresh, but you kind of attach yourself to these guides. And so my buddy Court Dothett down in the Tampa Bay area.
Oh yeah.
He's my kind of Gulf Tampa guy. Like he puts me on tarpon every year. Those guys run a good outfit down there. And then Captain Paul Ray, booked dates with him down in the Keys next year for tarpon, and maybe some redfish here or there. So I typically go by species, but there are those people that kind of draw me to different opportunities. If those guys cook up something, I'm going.
Yeah. Love it. What's your, just as we take it out of here on Tennessee, back to Tennessee here, what is there if somebody wants to go into this, they want to dig deeper, is there some sort of a resource, or we talked about the fly shops, but if they want to learn more about all these these areas around Tennessee, what would you recommend?
Yeah, that's a good question, because at this point it is the fly shops and the guides that are kind of the resource, because there's
no fly fishing Tennessee. Yeah.
There's currently, to my knowledge, there's no book or resource in production that specifically targets Tennessee. And I do happen to know some people who are maybe interested in writing that book.
Oh, cool.
Nice. But we'll see what comes of it. But yeah, I mean, just and that's the cool thing about fly shops, and it's the reason that they're still around, right? It's like, there's this. It's a ongoing living legacy for the resource and for information. So if you ever have any questions, like I said, look up the local fly shop. That's just something I do whenever I go somewhere, and I hope that people do whenever they travel. It's just try and look up those places, and don't be afraid to stop in with questions.
Yep. No, this is great, Seth. I think we'll send everybody out today to thehatchoutfitters.com to connect with you and everything you have going. And man, I definitely appreciate all the time today. It's been fun. I know we can't always hit on everything, but maybe we'll get you on again to talk gar down the line, or another species you want to. But this has been a lot of fun. Thanks for the time. I'm all in. Thanks, Dave. I really appreciate the opportunity. So there it is. We are go for landing. wetflyswing.com/372. That's the place to get your transcript, to get the links, to get some videos, and to check out what that Tennessee tarpon looks like. I know you're interested. Tennessee tarpon just rings and rolls off the tongue. Reminder, if you get a chance, please share this episode with one other person today. I would thank you, and this is the way that we have been growing this show, one listener at a time. Right in your app is a real easy button. Click down there, and it will say share. Probably if you scroll down, click that link, copy it, share it out, and I thank you in advance for supporting fly fishing and all the brands that support us. Got a couple more winners. This is for the Top Fly Challenge. Wanted to remind you, we have 3 new winners that are getting a new fly box, jam-packed with flies, and this was just from going to the Top Fly Challenge. wetflyswing.com/topfly. We've been giving out fly boxes, and it's a chance for you to pick your top fly. All right, I'm going to pick my top fly. I am getting ready for a couple of things. One thing, we've got the Steelhead School. We're actually going up there with Jeff Liskay, so I'm not quite sure what my top fly is going to be, but you could check out that episode if you're interested, because whatever Jeff said on that one is what I'm going to have in my box. And I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear what's going on with you this year. Are you getting out on a trip? Have you been listening to podcasts? Have we been missing any episodes? Any topics you want to hear about? You can check with me on social, wetflyswing, or Dave at wetflyswing.com. And I want to give you a heads up. We are in the process now. In the next few months, we are going to be doing a little bit of rebrand. And so that's going to be coming up here. Nothing really is going to change from what we've been doing. We're still going to keep digging in on fly fishing, but as I've been talking to people and myself, I just love the diversity of the outdoor space. So we're going to be doing a few more of those things as we go, but always bringing it back to fly fishing. And we're thinking about swing, more of a swing outdoors. It kind of flows. So if that sounds good to you, you have a topic in the outdoor space that maybe isn't fly fishing related, you can check in with me and let me know. I'd love to hear from you and get that on and get a guest on for you. And I'd also love to talk to you. All right, I'm going to get out of here. I appreciate you for supporting the podcast. I hope to maybe see you on one of our trips, maybe online somewhere. And I hope you are having a great evening, a great morning, or a great afternoon, wherever in the world you are. And I will talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show. For notes and links from this episode, visit wetflyswing.com.